It was one of those evenings when the world seemed to slow down, as if even time itself had grown weary of rushing. Snowflakes drifted like silent whispers over the quiet park, layering the benches and pathways in soft white. Under one of the lamps, dim and flickering, sat a man who looked like he carried the weight of 1,000 unshed tears behind his calm eyes. His name was Ethan Cole, the youngest self-made millionaire CEO in the city. To the world, he was brilliance wrapped in an expensive suit, the kind of man people admired, envied, and whispered about in boardrooms and magazines. But tonight, sitting alone on that cold bench, the man behind the title looked like someone who had forgotten how to breathe. His gloves lay beside him, his bare hands clasped as if holding something invisible, perhaps a memory he couldn't let go of. Snow gathered on his hair and shoulders, but he didn't move. He thought of her again, Isabella, the only person who ever saw him as more than his success. She had loved him before he was Ethan Cole, the CEO, when he was just Ethan, the boy who dreamed of building something meaningful. 2 years ago, she'd walked out of his life after a misunderstanding that had torn them apart. He had chosen ambition over love, boardrooms over promises, deadlines over dinners. And when she left, she didn't just take her presence, she took his peace. He had everything money could buy, penthouses, cars, prestige, but the one thing he wanted most had slipped through his fingers quietly, like snow melting on warm skin. He looked up at the sky, the gray clouds swallowing the last hint of sunlight, and whispered to no one, "I'm tired, Bella." His voice cracked, the kind that happens when a man tries to sound strong but his soul betrays him. For a long moment, there was only silence, until a tiny, trembling voice broke through the still air. "You look sad, mister." Ethan turned, startled. Standing a few feet away was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, bundled in a brown coat, a pink scarf slightly crooked around her neck, her cheeks red from the cold. She was holding a small snowball, half-formed, as if she had forgotten she was playing. Her eyes, wide, innocent, and strangely familiar, studied him with a kind of concern that felt too pure for this cold world. He blinked, surprised. "Do I?" he asked softly, forcing a faint smile. She nodded seriously. "Yeah. My mommy says when people stare at the ground too long, it's 'cause their heart is heavy." "Is your heart heavy, mister?" Ethan felt something stir inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He wanted to laugh, maybe even cry, but all he managed was a quiet sigh. "Maybe it is," he said. "Maybe it's heavier than I can carry." The girl stepped closer, her little boots crunching in the snow. "Wanna meet my mommy? She makes hearts feel light again." He almost chuckled. The innocence in her tone was disarming. "Your mommy fixes hearts?" The girl nodded proudly. "Yup. She says hearts just need someone to listen." Ethan hesitated, but curiosity won over reason. He stood up, brushing the snow from his coat. "Well then," he said gently, "maybe I do need to meet your mommy." She smiled, a small, genuine curve of lips that reminded him painfully of someone. She held out her tiny hand. "Come on." He looked at that small hand, hesitant, then took it carefully, as if afraid he might break something fragile. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. She led him down the snow-covered path, humming softly. And as they walked, something inside him began to shift, a faint stirring of something long forgotten. Hope, maybe. They stopped near a small cafe tucked in a corner of the park, its windows fogged, golden light spilling from within. The sign read, "Bella's Place." His heart skipped a beat. That name. That impossible, beautiful name. The girl tugged his hand. "That's my mommy's shop," she said proudly. He froze. His breath hitched. "Your mommy's name is Bella?" The girl nodded. "Uh-huh. Isabella." The world tilted. He felt dizzy. For a moment, he thought it was some cruel trick of fate. The cafe door opened, a soft chime ringing, and there she was. Isabella. She looked exactly as he remembered, yet somehow different, softer, maybe stronger. Her long hair was tied in a loose bun, a few strands falling against her face. She wore a cream-colored sweater dusted with flour, an apron around her waist, and those same eyes, deep, brown, endlessly kind, that had once been his entire universe. When she saw him standing there, her smile faltered. The world seemed to stop. "Ethan," she whispered, disbelief flooding her voice. He could barely speak. Bella. The little girl looked between them, confused but curious. Mommy, you know him. Isabella swallowed, her voice trembling. Yes, sweetheart. I do. The air was thick with unspoken words, the years they'd lost, the pain, the questions. He wanted to explain, to tell her how sorry he was, how the nights without her had been longer than his years of success. But all that came out was silence. Come in, she said finally, quietly. It's cold. He followed her inside. The cafe smelled of coffee and freshly baked bread, warm, comforting, alive. Pictures lined the walls, of customers smiling, of Isabella laughing with her daughter. There was a peace here he'd never found in his glass-walled office towers. He watched her move behind the counter, graceful and steady, the same way she used to move around their old apartment. He sat at a small table, his heart thundering. The little girl, her daughter, climbed onto the chair beside him, swinging her legs. So, she said with a grin, you met my mommy. He smiled faintly. I did. She's amazing. The girl beamed. I know. She says love is like hot chocolate. It burns if you're not careful, but it's sweet if you wait. Ethan laughed softly. It was such an Isabella thing to say. His eyes met Bella's from across the room. She was watching him, cautious, uncertain, but not angry. He could see a question in her eyes. Why are you here? He wanted to tell her everything, that he had spent 2 years building an empire only to realize he'd been building walls around himself. That every success felt hollow without her. That no award or headline could silence the echo of her name. When she came over with 2 mugs of cocoa, he whispered, you named the cafe after yourself. She smiled faintly. No. After what I lost. He looked down, guilt pressing on his chest. I deserve that. She didn't reply. The little girl, still blissfully unaware of the tension, sipped her cocoa and sighed happily. Mommy, Mr. Ethan was sad. But I told him you make hearts light again. Isabella froze, eyes glistening. Then she looked at him. Still believing that, she said softly. He nodded. I think she's right. The evening slipped into quiet conversation. She told him how she'd left the city, started over with her daughter, built the cafe from nothing. He listened, every word filling the emptiness inside him. When he finally stood to leave, the little girl hugged his leg. Don't be sad anymore, mister. He knelt, smiling through the ache. I'll try not to be, sunshine. As he looked up at Isabella one last time, something passed between them, not forgiveness yet, but the possibility of it. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And in that silence, Ethan realized that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't an ending at all. Outside, the snow had stopped. The world seemed softer, quieter. He walked away slowly, the glow of the cafe fading behind him but warming something deep inside. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't dared to feel, hope. Dizzy, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more tales of love, fate, and second chances. Sometimes, the smallest encounters can lead to the biggest miracles.